Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Beatrice and Carsten, for organizing this beautiful day. I was really blown away by the Young Climate Prize winners and wondering what can I add to this. I mean, wow, not so easy. I prepared a talk today about more personal investigation about the making of my work, in which I allow chance and change to redirect its outcome. And I hope to share some insight in this creative process, as Douglas put also so beautifully forward earlier in his story. There was a great Zen monk who lived shortly after 1000 BC, who had a very peculiar way of thinking. He would get very drunk on rice wine, soak his long hair in ink, and flush it all over the paper. He would then do a Rorschach test on it and decide what kind of drawing it was, and accordingly put in the finishing touches. Suddenly, out of this apparent chaos, a depiction would emerge. Although I am an architect, in my work I start with material that often comes from outside of it. At the start of my practice, I thought an architect makes drawings, and therefore my first step was to question what a drawing can be. The inkblot drawings that you see here were made in South Korea in 2010. I placed papers in my studio horizontally on the floor and dripped ink on them rapidly with a large brush. The ink, the matter itself, had in this way a free play and was kept by a gravitational pull. I produced hundreds of drawings like this, and in the conviction that things can always be re-examined and reinterpreted, these drawings could also be seen as architecture. At least that was my point. And I used these inkblots to make buildings and models. I used them as forms for architectural plans, in this case a tower. In its open form, when built, the tower resembled an unbuilt project of Mies van der Rohe, the glass skyscraper, where Mies was interested in the reflections of glass on an irregular form in the models he was making. I had used reflective silver foil to build up this dialogue. A second version I made later in cast gypsum, and in solid form, the tower suddenly resembles a fragment of a Gothic column. The point being here is that every time a reading of an inkblot could produce something new, something to be still discovered. In this process of working, I made several projects, such as the Museum Fort Vecht, as you can see here, and its interior, a temporary exhibition space in the Netherlands, and recently the Muharraq Hotel in Bahrain. Bahrain is also where I live and work for 11 years now. In these projects, the design starts by chance. The openness in the possibilities of the drawings or found forms is what appeals to me. And these forms are not something I have drawn consciously or defined on the basis of my thoughts. And artists such as Marcel Duchamp, Jean Arp, or Tacita Dean use chance to produce work they did not have knowledge of yet. A working process beneath your conscious level that Tacita Dean describes as a process that requires an aspect of willful blindness. In my practice, the attention from the drawing at the base of producing architecture shifted to the materiality of the construction itself. And with this new focus, the process of working with material and the unique characteristics of a particular material, which I called material gestures, enables me to find form as a result of intervening in the process of making. Chance, through the focus on materiality, shifts to change. Changes of states of matter, changes in the formation of matter, changes by our gestures applied to matter, and also changes caused by our environment, such as weather, air conditions, erosion, and climate change, as we heard today. The gestures of working a material don't disappear in the final outcome, but are embedded, and sometimes literally imprinted in the work, as you can see the traces of the fingers forming the loose gypsum molds for the kiln-formed glass that you see here on the photo. I'm fascinated by glass as a material, particularly its responsiveness to changing weather conditions and the distinct states of matter it can exhibit. These factors contribute to an ever-changing appearance. The glass samples that you see here on the table that we showed at the Diriyah Contemporary Art Biennale last year are made of 100% recycled glass, something that is not done in the glass industry because of always the inherent contaminations that are part of glass. But for this we thought by the different exposures to heat and use 100% base, what its outcome might be. And the resulting glass samples vary in appearance. They become clear and crystalline to types that start to resemble stone, whereas each glass responds differently to light transmittance, but also to the changing light conditions caused by our weather. Currently, the new Misk Art Institute is under construction in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and the building's facade are all made of cast glass panels, measuring each 2.5 by 4 meters. It's a usage of cast glass in architecture that is, we figured out naively, unprecedented. But the project is now taken by RIBA from the UK in writing a new building code for the usage of cast glass in building construction. We choose cast glass as its main material, as it is a material that absorbs heat due to its mass, which is beneficial in Riyadh, and in its cast form diffuses light beautifully to the interior. The incredible strong light of Riyadh, many times more intense than we have here on a sunny day in New York, will be this building's be its specific strength and constantly change by the changing light conditions caused by our weather and the reflections from the light on its surroundings. The relief of the glass is derived from the limestone rock of the surrounding arid landscape. The granular material in the cast glass imparts its light transmittance and color rendering as its key aspects, removing the glass typical transparency. And with this cast, you have the material imprint of the site itself. They are like reliefs that can be investigated as fragments of territories. And for me, it's really fascinating that the landscape of a site is used to physically cast them, but also that they are stacked together in a kind of encyclopedic investigation of both its place and possible fragments of other landscapes. The building is situated freely within an excavation we propose to carve out of the escarpment of a wadi, which is a dry riverbed, where a new area dedicated to art and education is being developed in Riyadh. The excavation is 25 meters deep and forms the surrounding of the Art Institute. And the spaces between building and excavation provide comfort for outdoor use, and sunlight filtering through these spaces creates dynamic light conditions and reflections of the surrounding limestone rock face. Space, matter, spaces between matter and matter tracing spaces are brought together in this constant changing conditions caused by our weather. This is a sample of the cast glass in an art foundry in Shanghai that we have been working with. There is an intrinsic relationship between heat, matter, and light that are both present in the process of casting glass as it is in the performance of glass in the building. The resulting glass allows light, again climate and weather, to pass through and create an interaction between space and matter that is dynamic and performative. The concrete structure is up at the moment and we are producing the glass, and the museum will open by the end of this year. The environment is a constant change, and I believe that with accepting change, we can gain a deeper appreciation of a present moment with all the minute details that form the complexities of our ever-changing reality. And matter responds to the environmental conditions. Sunlight filters through glass, and the silver leaf here, shown as part of the Siyadi Pearl Museum, oxides by the conditions of air. Earlier this year, we completed the Siyadi Pearl Museum, which is part of the UNESCO-listed heritage site, the Pearling Path in Muharraq in Bahrain. The main room is finished with silver leaf on its wall plaster, And silver is a highly reactive material to weathering. The humidity of the saline air that we have in Bahrain, containing impurities, which is a beautiful word for pollution, like silver, it leaves its mark. To start this process of oxidation, we bought black salt at the market and we cooked it overnight to ignite in a way this process. This process is unstable and it's also ongoing as the silver leaf is not finished. So eventually, I believe, the room will turn dark. There's a beautiful theory by British physicist Julian Barber, who says that time does not exist. He argues that we have no evidence of the past other than our memory of it, and no evidence of the future other than our belief in it. He says difference merely creates an illusion of time, with each individual moment existing in its own right, complete and whole. So what we notice as variations in the shape or changes in the positions of objects in our surroundings give us an illusion of time, but according to Barber's theory, are actually different states of matter. So, in simpler words, when we say that time has passed, what we really mean something has transformed. I will quickly show you the project. The Siyadi Pearl Museum consists of a small mosque that you see in the front with the minaret, the mess behind, which is a kind of meeting room to do business and organize social matters. And next to it is a third volume that we have added that is part of the museum. The materiality of both the buildings is limestone plaster on coral stone. Coral stone is taken from the sea. And the difference between the old and new is merely just made by leaving the new parts unfinished. So its second layer of plaster is just partly done. And in the museum, it showcases pearl collections from the National Museum, also from Cartier archives, and the pearl merchant families from Bahrain. And as pearls are observed for the quality in daylight, as this has the best color rendering for qualifying their lusters and shininess, etc. The museum has side windows that are always next to the showcases. To conclude my talk, I would like to embrace the idea that there is not one reality for something. By definition, and this I thought was also really beautiful earlier said today, and I can only support it. Because by definition of our different cultures and personalities, we do understand things in different ways. And this diversity of engagement, I believe, enriches our readings. And when a work of architecture would allow multiple interpretations, it's a quality rather than a mistake. And therefore, in my own work, what I try to do for you today is to show how a process doesn't lead to a singular conclusion, or how its execution is not fixed and idealized, even when I'm no longer working in it, but much the process, how it came to being, is at its base. Thank you so much.